Hello everybody and welcome to Wine Library TV. I'm your host, Gary Vaynerchuk, and let's get right into an action-packed episode of WLTV. We're going to be doing Chateauneuf Du Pape today. A lot of people have been asking for it, so I'm delivering. We're going to do a couple 03s and a couple of 04s. Chateauneuf Du Pape, let me preface this by saying, is probably one of my favorite wines in the world. I drink an obscene amount of Rhone wines, and I'm a huge fan of the Chateauneuf Du Papes. I'm going to tell you right now, Chateauneuf Du Pape is still the greatest steal in the wine industry. These wines are heavily undervalued in the price scope of the world today. And so for $35 to $75, you are getting world-class wines. And so I think that's pretty rad, and I think you should think that as well. And so, if you haven't had a Chateauneuf Du Pape, you need to go out and get one immediately. Now, Chateauneuf Du Pape, 13 grapes allowed to make a Chateauneuf Du Pape by law. Mainly Grenache. You're seeing most of these wines are mainly Grenache-based wines, but they're also Canus, Cinsault, Mourvedre, Syrah. These are all wines, grapes that are allowed to be put into the Chateauneuf Du Pape final blend. And to me, that makes it very exotic. A lot of blending going on. Now, same with Bordeaux. These labels probably could use the blends on the back. That's something I'm going to advocate over the next couple of months on Wine Library TV, is for more wineries in Europe to put the blend on the back. I think that would really help consumers. I think that's always a baffling thing with Bordeaux, and definitely in Chateauneuf Du Pape as well, considering there's 13 to choose from. So that's a little preface, a little history on Chateauneuf Du Pape. It's just an amazing area in the scope of the world. I mean, the wineries are just amazing, the quality is amazing, and to be very honest with you, I'm baffled how these wines are still under $100 a bottle for the world-class wines. Wines like this. So, let's get into tasting. The Vieux Télégraphe 2003 Chateauneuf Du Pape. Very famous winery. Vieux Télégraphe has done a great job in the past. I've always been a big fan of what they've done. Let's see how this shows. Nice color. Very exotic nose. I mean, these wines deliver. I don't know what else to say. They give you a lot of flavor, a lot of complexity. Very obvious cherry, strawberry kind of flavor. Actually, let's call that strawberry. Let's nix the cherry. Very strawberry driven, almost like a strawberry quick. Remember that mix? You're getting that real obvious flavor. Yeah, it's really like that. Let's see, the tannins are pretty firm. There's a muddy aspect to it, and don't tell me you've never tasted mud. There's definitely a little bit of mud. Wow. The nose and the flavor profile on this wine are totally different. I know this wine scored over 90 points, but I don't see it. It's got a clouded, muted, kind of honeyed fruit flavor, which I find very offensive. The tannins are a little off balance. I don't know. This is just not a great Chateauneuf Du Pape. Not what I would expect to pay $40 or $50 for. So I'm going to say pass on the Vieux Télégraphe, and I don't really know what else to say except that the flavors are very disjointed. Let's move on. Patrick Lessec, 2004, Pierre Durie, Chateauneuf Du Pape, 92 to 94 points, Wine Spectator. Let's taste it. Great color, much deeper color than the Vieux Télégraphe. Let's get you right in there. Real dark. I like the color quite a bit. There we go. Interesting nose. Not as good as the Vieux Télégraphe nose, but it's coming around. These wines were open for 4 hours, so they've been breathing for quite a while. Really wanted them to open up because these are massive, big wines that should be drank with steaks and big meals. Tight nose, not a lot coming out. This is good stuff. This has got really complex cherry on the mid-palate, a little bit of Asian spice. You know what this reminds me of? It has a little tea leaf flavor to it, like a green tea aspect to it. This wine is very nice, very rich, very complex. Solid flavor. Nice wine. Very solid Chateauneuf Du Pape. I like it. I would say this is like an 89 to 91 point wine. I'm going to go lower than a Spectator on this one. But it's well developed. Again, really obvious black cherry, Asian spice, that tea leaf flavor. This would go really well with, a pot roast, something that with an exotic flavor. I could see this wine doing well with a lot of pepper. It would blend well. This wine probably would age really well for 6 to 12 years. I would like to see where it's at that point. Not a bad wine. Let's move on. One final smell. Vet Julien, 2004, Chateauneuf Du Pape. Now, 03 in Europe, as you guys know, was a very hot vintage, and a lot of the Chateauneuf Du Papes became very controversial because the heat was very high and the alcohol levels were very high. 04 is a little bit more subdued. There's a lot of debate on the quality. Most people find 03 and 04 to be very solid vintages, but they're definitely overheated 03s that people have been complaining about. Really interesting about this exact wine, in 04, they always make 3 wines, 2 luxury cuvee reserves. They did not make either. So there's only 1 wine. So all those great single vineyard grapes went into this. So it should be interesting to see how this shows. The color is spectacular. You've got really that grimace from, McDonald's purple color. It's really, really nice. Wow. By far the most interesting nose. A little bit of vanilla bean I'm getting, obviously, on that. Getting almost like a smell of the forest, just like those evergreen kind of smells. Strawberry, a little bit of cherry, really complex nose. A lot of things going on there. Yes, absolutely. This is spectacular. Very rich, coats your palate, very dry. My mouth is very dry. Gives me an obscene amount of blackberry and blackcurrant on the nose. I'm just adoring this wine. I think this is about the $50 range. This wine will last for 7 to 15 years. This is classic fruit. This is a wine you should seek out. I love when they don't make their top cuvées and put it into the regular wine. That just gives us an opportunity to find amazing bargains. And this is very, very interesting wine. I get a little bit of leather on the finish. But once again, there's that herbal tea aspect that I'm really tasting on this wine, just like the Le Sec. This is more like a black tea, vanilla bean. This is very interesting. This is a home run. Yeah, you got to go out and find this. And finally, the 2003 Clos du Pape, Chateauneuf Du Pape. A very, very interesting wine because, number one, this was the number 2 wine of the year for the Wine Spectator and also received 97 points from Robert Parker. Was originally rated with a range of up to 100 points. But what's been really wild about this wine is a lot of people have debated the quality of the wine. So I'm excited to try it. I've had this about 10 times. So let's see how this bottle is showing. Again, a very burnt wood nose, like a forest fire, hanging out with your friends. A little bit of black currant, a little cassis. You might be able to tell my tone is totally different on this episode because I'm really into these wines. I'm really getting in there. Yeah, just an interesting smoky aspect, like a smoked bacon wrapped with cherries and strawberries. I don't know. It's got a lot of tannins on the back end, bitter tannins. There's a little sharpness and a little too much acidity on the finish. It's a little thin and on the mid palate. I've jumped up and down on this wine. I'm not blown away by this wine. I'm going to give it 91 points at best, which is, tough because RP and WS go 97. So, could shed bad light on me because those are great wine critics, but I don't see it. There's just no comparison to the Julien. I find it hollow and just, overrated. I do feel the heat might have had an impact. I don't know. I'm just not in love. And so with that, I'm going to say pass on the number 2 wine of the year from last year. I'm going to recommend the Julien, absolutely. I thought the Le Sec was a nice wine. The Vieux Télégraphe was, it sucked, really. So, go to the questions of the day. Jim J says, Gary, among other things that Jim said, question, I noticed that 2 of the Sauvignon Blancs from today had corks and 2 had screw caps. What's your take on the cork screw cap debate? Jim J, I want everyone in the world to go screw top. That's right, I'm huge in favor of screw caps. Why not? I mean, the corks, there's romance, there's all that bowl junk that people love. But I'm telling you right now, it's better for the wines. Now, some people are going to say, what about the aging and this, that, and the other thing, as I like to say. But I'm a big fan of screw caps. Obviously, we have to see over test of time. I can't wait till I'm 65 and 70, and I'm going to have an opportunity to try some wines that have been in screw cap for 30 to 40 years. But my suspicion is that they're going to show great. And the corks really are the fundamental problem with so many wines today, with bacteria and all that. I'm a huge fan of screw caps. So keep drinking those screw cap wines. If you're watching this and you're scared and you've never had a screw cap wine, please have one. They're great. It's a great way to go. I mean, I know it's not as cool or as pretty, but I'm a big fan for the quality of the juice inside. KJB says, this might be a stupid question, but when you taste whites on the show, are they chilled? KJB, that's actually a hugely awesome question. You know why? I'm a big debater about this subject. I believe all white wine should be drank at room temperature if you really want to evaluate the quality. I find when you chill wine, it takes away and mutes and hides a lot of the flaws. And so that's why people really like cold, crisp white wine. It's like a cold beer. Not that many people drink warm beer because some of the flavors aren't just as good. And the coldness hides a lot of flaws in wine. And so when I taste white wine to buy for the shop, it's always at room temperature. Always. When I drink at home, sometimes if it's 197 outside, of course a cold Riesling is the way to go. But pretty much for the show, definitely room temperature. David K says, among other things. Okay, now I have a question for you. I know, you like asking the questions, not answering them. But I think that I've spent enough at Wine Library over the past few years that I deserve to ask a question every now and then. So my question is, what wine, with an S, did you serve at your wedding? I got married about 2 years ago, and we got married at the beautiful Essex House in New York City. We were able to bring some of our own wine, and I was really only able to bring one. So I decided to bring a Chardonnay, which I knew would cover a lot of the people at the wedding. So we had the Sharpshooter Chardonnay, which is really my standby $15 to $20 Chardonnay, which I'm a big fan of. The red was something that they had to serve. It was definitely not the crowning moment of my wine career, but sometimes your hands are, locked, and it was in November, and I was thinking about the fourth quarter so much. So ultimately, I'm an embarrassment for my wedding wines, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. That was kind of tough to tell you guys. Finally, Raced N says, last bottle was the Joseph Phelps 2002 Insignia, one of my dad's favorites. The occasion was telling my parents that my wife is expecting. Wasn't a question. It's just a congratulations to Ray N. And you know what, fellow WLTV team members? Let's get on the board today and congratulate Ray N. Let's give it up to him. This is a big moment. Ray, congratulations and enjoy. Okay, couple of other house cleaning things. I noticed somebody was mad that I didn't answer all the questions or said something to the degree of, well, I'm not going to ask a question today since they don't get answered. Listen, please keep putting your questions into the comments. Hopefully somebody from the community can answer them. But if you really want my answer, feel free to email me. Though I do get 1,500 emails a day. Yes, 1,500. I promise you I will answer it if it's that important to you. So, once again, anybody who's mad at me, which probably I deserve a little bit, please, if you want, email me directly. If you posted it there, I didn't answer it, you can come right back at me. So, question of the day. What's the one wine in Wine Library's inventory that you would like for me to taste on Wine Library TV? Let's get it going. We almost got to 100 yesterday, and it was pretty cool. So, ultimately, I'd like to see if we can get there tomorrow. Anyway, ask that question, and I have one final question for you. What you gonna do when Wine Library TV runs wild on you?